I care about application. We got a lot of preaching going on around here, but like, how do you apply it and how do you do it? A few months ago, I shared a video of my Quran habits, which has over 300,000 views to this day, and it got me about 13,000 followers on TikTok. This is one of the few things that I've been doing over the past 2 to 10 years, which have become second nature, habitual for me. As Muslims, balancing your faith and your practices, especially we have so many practices, with day-to-day responsibilities can be rough. Practices that are important to you or you say are important to you seem to slip through the cracks and you don't even know how the time has passed. It has been a day, a week, a month, and you feel like there's a void within your heart. But the reality is that you can taste the sweetness on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and a monthly basis. In this video, I'll be showing you the 5 Muslim habits that I've been doing consistently, keyword consistently, over the past 2 to 10 years. These are habits that have become such an integral part of who I am that I don't imagine I'll ever leave them until the day I die. I love to call these breadcrumbs to the straight path. I'm not saying that I am perfect, and I don't believe that perfection is a thing. Actually, that mindset is making us stagnant and it doesn't allow us to try. The concept that we have is ihsan, which is the concept of excellence. Excellence or ihsan takes into the fact that you are a human being who is flawed and who makes mistakes, but no matter how many times you fall down, you get back up. So I'll be telling you about how they started, why they're so important to me, and how I make them stick. All of these habits are daily or weekly habits. I can't go a week without them, but I will add one more bonus one at the end, which is a monthly habit that I've been practicing for a little over a year, and it is completely life-changing. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first habit is engaging with the Quran, and the word is tadabbur. So I studied Islamic thought for 2 years under the best of best minds. This is critical assessment, not just parroting whatever is being thrown at you. And I had this one teacher, and she required us to go home for the next 2 to 3 days and to actually just open up the Quran and just think through how that might be applying to our lives. And we kept on coming back, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And this was about 6 years ago, and I've been doing it consistently for the past 6 years. And when she was explaining this to us, she used this one Quran verse about how we actually carry on our backs like donkeys. And while that might be shocking, in reality, that is what we do. We put it on our bookshelf, it collects dust, we never open it for one reason or another. You memorize it, but you don't recite it. And if you recite it, you don't understand it. It doesn't sink into your heart to the point that it is actually changing your day-to-day life. So that was a challenge she put forth, and for 6 years, I've been practicing this, and it has completely reprogrammed my subconscious mind. So tadabbur means reflecting or contemplating over the words and seeing how it impacts your life, questioning and thinking about it and reflecting over it. The beauty of this for me is the fact that there is no barrier to entry. Fortunately, due to the system and the way that we grew up, it's going to be a challenge or a barrier to entry when it comes to recitation or memorization. But when it comes to reflection and contemplation, you can do it right now, right here. But since this is a habit that I do on a day-to-day basis, I only take about like 1 or 2 lines. It's about quality and not quantity at this phase of my life because I am a mom. I'm extremely busy. So this is something that I can do on a day-to-day basis. I've been doing this for the past 6 years, every single line of the Quran, and it has completely reprogrammed my subconscious mind. You're like, what does this mean? Let me explain it. So when we come into this world, we don't know anything, and you learn by 2 means. That is either through your experiences or the people that are around you. And when it comes to religion, most times it's always we learn it secondhand. Somebody taught you, your parents said this, the imam said this, somebody treated you bad in the masjid. It's always secondhand, but we never actually go to the source directly, nor do we read it line by line next to each other to the point that you can find certain themes and certain concepts repeating at you. So if you read just one line, it's not going to make a lot of difference, but if it's constantly every single day you're reading these lines, you do this over the course of 5, 6 years like I've been doing, then you get this internal confidence that is going to be, it's just a beautiful place to be in mentally. Number 2 is dhikr. I use this for cleansing and also to be intentional. Because I habit stack after Fajr, I do all of these habits. But the beauty of the dhikr process that I use is that I sit down and I am extremely intentional about it. So I pick up my tasbih beats and I do 100 times a day. So the 3 that I use is astaghfirullah, alhamdulillah, and la ilaha illallah. And when I'm doing every single one, I am thinking deeply about what has happened within the past 24 hours that I have to ask forgiveness for, that I have to be grateful for, and which I have to realize also the reality in which I live in is not fully in my control. The key point is that I am making a specific time for this, which is right after my fajr or when I'm doing my soul habits in the morning, so that I am actually here mentally with my heart and with my intention. But most of the time when it comes to dhikr, there are like debates about using tasbih beads or not, is that we assume we're going to do it tomorrow, but we don't do it. You assume that you will do it. You lose count if you're using it on your hands. By habit stacking and doing this early in the morning, I know for a fact that I was fully present while I was doing this one habit, which is 100 times. But one thing you have to be concerned about when it comes to these things is that I focus mostly on habits and not routines. You can get very stagnant with routines. Yes, I do 100 now, but why not when I am walking between different prayers that I am able to do 100, 1,000. With habits, you can stack on top of each other. So you can do 100, 100, 100 over and over again, maybe 5 times. Maybe you can do it moment to moment. But when you are in a routine and you say, oh, I need my tasbih beads in order to do, dhikr, then that can make you be stagnant, even though your lifestyle requires you to be more present and to do more dhikr. Next, I read my dua book multiple times a week, if not daily. It kind of gets hard, on the weekends, that's when I be roughing it. This is one of my longest habits. I've been doing this for about 10 years. I started it in college when I am on my commute. I went to my computer, I printed out the dua, and this is Wird al-Latif, and I would read through it every single morning. I used to have this like really cute folder, and I'll go through it because it's multiple pages. And you know that you're using something right when it's falling apart. And this was falling apart. But then I upgraded and I actually got a book. So what I love about this is I am not like those grandmothers back home who can just like whip up their hands and just do all of these du'as. Like, how do they do that? Like, that's decision fatigue. I don't know what to say, how to say it, where to say it. I don't know. But these books are pre-compiled, and these are like the best of minds throughout history who have compiled this information together. So what I do is I do the prep work. I create the action plan of figuring out which one is going to be. I've studied the Haddad one, but Wird al-Latif always kind of, that's my thing. I've been doing this for 10 years. But the thing that I do in order to actually make it realistically applicable, it's about you actually doing it and getting into action. It's not about doing it the way that it says, because even though it says, do it 10 times, do it 7 times, maybe 3 times, I only do about 3 pages and I do it once. I remember going to a retreat once and they spent like 30 minutes doing this. And I'm like, who has time for this? I don't have time for this. Because there's a purpose to why they do this. In order to compensate, I do this once a week on Fridays, and I listen to the full audio and I recite with it. But on a day-to-day basis, I just need to be present. I need to be intentional with the du'as that I'm making. And these du'as, I'm telling you, they're like protection. I have this one favorite one. When I recite it, I feel literally a presence that's around me. And when you're making these du'as, there are certain things that you don't know you need, right? Like you have anxiety issues, you need to be trusting more, you need more protection, you don't know. So this is a way of fortifying yourself before you start the day. And the next one is praying 5 times a day. This was a struggle. Hopefully I'll tell you my full life story, but when it comes to habits, a lot of the times we blame our inability to pray 5 times a day. For a lot of people, this is a challenge, but it's so taboo that people just don't talk about it. But this is a habit, and there's a whole psychology, science, research, data when it comes to this. And one of the key things that you need to understand, and I share this all over my TikTok, this is actually where all of these followers came from, is oftentimes the trigger that causes the behavior. But a lot of us, we shame, we guilt for the inability to get into the behavior. The system we live in prioritizes financial success because we live in a globalized capitalist society, which means if you're not prioritizing your education from the age of 5, if you're not getting into the best schools, then you cannot eat. This is a survival issue. If you had an upbringing that is privileged or had parents who really prioritize religion over just education, then you're going to be set up in a way that is going to make it easier for you. For other people like me, which prioritize economic stability and not really religion because we were in survival mode, then this whole habit of praying 5 times a day does not really get linked to your identity as a Muslim. So this was a habit that I really had to train myself on. 5 times a day required a lifestyle change, as well as really literally I had to train myself to get into that habit. So I use my habit tracker, and that's how I'm able to keep up with all of this alongside all of my hectic life, having multiple kids, doing online business. It's a lot, you guys. But by habit tracking, I was able to see the thread. Every time that I missed it, I was conscious of it. So if you want to get into this habit, and I can definitely make a whole other video about this, is that you need to figure out what are the beliefs that you have, what are the lack of knowledges, what are the holes in the knowledge that you have, which are causing you to be in friction, or it's making it a lot harder that you're not able to get into that habit. For instance, the lack of knowledge about wudu, like what is the requirement, what is fard versus what is the sunnah. But unfortunately, due to social conditioning and what we hear from other people, what we learn from other people's mouths, we unfortunately assume that the sunnah of wudu, which is you doing multiple steps over and over again, is actually what is required, rather than the 4 simple steps. Y'all need to Google this. The 4 simple steps when it comes to making wudu, which is the required, which is fard, which is a lot easier, which will help you get into actually the habit. So lack of knowledge and the beliefs that we have about what we need to do is oftentimes the problem when it comes to having these Muslim habits. So knowledge is going to be the most critical thing that you can invest in, and that is what I invested in to get on this level. Last one is Jummah. This is supposed to be a weekly habit, but throughout my life has changed a lot. I'm a woman, it's not really a requirement. When I was in college, we had a masjid right on campus, so we would always be there. That was like the hangout space. I was at the masjid multiple times, but when I graduated college and then I started working, it was like pulling teeth, working in corporate, even asking for time to pray. It's such a hard thing, and I just despise it. Not being who you want to be. And I kind of made a deal with Allah. If you allow me to have more free time, I will definitely continue doing these habits. But my lifestyle and the system in which I was in did not allow me to do that. And a lot of times we blame ourselves for our inability to do these things. If you understood habit systems, or the fact that your habits live within a system, then you don't blame yourself so much, but you can also have a long-term plan. So when I had free time, me and my husband would make a whole date of it. We would, go for Jummah, we would hang out with our friends, we would have lunch afterwards, and it was just such a fun thing to do. And this was something that happened because I became an entrepreneur. I co-founded a startup business. So I was able on Jummah to actually get away and have that fun. But what happens after that? We had COVID, and I had 2 kids back to back. So that means they had nap times that we couldn't go out. That created a void that it wasn't working out. So I started this new habit, which was at least to listen to the Jummah khutbah every single week. So if you read about the revelation of Surah Jummah, then you understand that there is a critical reason as to why we have this day. It's supposed to be a weekly reminder so that you can connect with the community as well as with your deen again. So you have to be creative, especially as a woman who is in different circumstances in her life, and being able to use technology in order to listen and to have these weekly reminders was something that was really important to me. So I would make an event of it, and I would just sit down, have my tea, listen to the lecture. Most of the time just fall asleep because I'm exhausted, but I would wake up again and then rewind it and listen to it again. But the whole thing is to have somebody who is of knowledge, who has prepared this lecture knowing what is currently happening within the community, and this is such an essential thing for me. Now things have changed in which, I do have a community, my kids are growing up, so we are going to the masjid more. I have a friend, she makes us come, she wants the woman to come, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And now we have made it an event in our life. Alhamdulillah, we have that opportunity where my husband gets off for Jummah and the weekend starts then and there. But this required a lot of work and a lot of time, and throughout my life I had to be creative, and that's one thing I really want y'all to take away from this. And the bonus Islamic habit that I started doing is fasting once a month. This started 2 Ramadans ago, and I do this once a month. I'm trying to make it twice a month, but life is hard, and I want to stay consistent with it, so once a month. And it is completely life-changing. I really didn't realize how impactful it could be. This is a way of detoxing your mind as well as your body. What it has helped me with a lot is with overthinking and how the brain is processing or using all of this glucose in order to make me overthink. So I love this habit. It also helps me with self-control in order to be more disciplined in life. Since I had babies, had to nurse and all of that stuff, and just didn't have that time, as well as on top of that, I'm skinny. You see these bones, okay? So when I was young, I couldn't fast. I wasn't allowed to fast until I figured out exactly what the problem was, and we did a procedure when I was 21, and now finally I am at the weight that I want to, but I do not have the practice that a lot of people have. So it made Ramadan so difficult. So I had to practice, and I had to make up a couple of new ones. So the new habit is, if I do it once a month, it helps me on a day-to-day basis, but also it helps me build that muscle so that I can be prepared for Ramadan and that I can continue doing this over and over again, because as a woman, you're always going to miss something once in a while. I hope that this was helpful. These are only 5, maybe 6 habits, and I do this alongside with everything everything else. Like I said, having my habit planner, my habit tracker, as well as understanding habit systems is what makes these habits easier, faster, and more consistent. Let me know which of these habits that you actually want to build or are having a challenge with, and I will tell you exactly the methodology that I created to make sure that every single habit that I try, I actually succeed at. My other habit is that I take research papers or research findings from experts in neurology, biology, Islamic studies, and I combine all of that and distill it in order to actually change my life. I care about application. We got a lot of preaching going on around here, but like, how do you apply it and how do you do it? I used to do habits consultations one-on-one with people, but then I realized there was a lot of people who just needed more direct information. So if you want more resources, I have it on my website. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share with other Muslims, because this is the kind of information we need out there so that I can give you in-depth information that is actually transformative. So until next time, peace.